and welcome to the EV Groups Nexus, their fourth virtual meetup because of the big dreaded C word. I work for Octopus Electric Vehicles, and welcome to the EV Groups Nexus. The future of understanding electric cars lie best with the people that already drive them, and that's why we support these guys working hard and answering all your questions. So without further ado, let me hand over to Neil and he will take us from there.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I'm Neil E. Roberts from Sussex EVs, and I just want to thank you all for joining us again for another great session. We got a great panel today, so we really hope that you enjoy what we put on for you. I'd now like to pass over to John, otherwise known as Beardy McBeardface.
Hello world, yeah, this is me, John, or as you know me on Twitter, Beardy, as Ian said. Oh, sorry, Neil said. Oh, got the wrong teeth in. I run Kent EVs, and I also help sort of push along the EV Nexus, so that's me.
Thank you very much, John. And Heather from the Scottish EV Drivers Group. Hi
there. Yep, I'm Heather from the Scottish EV Drivers Club. Running about nearly 5 years now. I also am a Sustainable Transport Coordinator for Energy Saving Trust. So, yeah, it's all good.
Excellent. And now Colin Hennessy.
Hi there, I'm Colin. I started the Cambridgeshire EV Owners Group back in January this year. We're about 70 strong and growing fast. Looking forward to today's webinar.
Cool. And now over to Guillaume.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Guillaume. I'm representing Ireland today. So I'm Pierre for the Irish EV Owner Association. I also run the Cork Rebel EV Owners Group for a few years now, and co-hosting a YouTube channel called EV Ireland. So yeah, I love EV challenges and road trips, obviously. I've been traveling quite a few countries over the years. I'm using this time to thank you, Neil, just to promote a bit a charity drive that I'm doing with another EV owner. So this is this Friday coming, so in a few days. We're supporting 4 different charities like Alzheimer's Scotland and Irish Cancer Society. We'll be driving across all 32 Irish counties in around maybe 20 hours. So if you want to follow us, it starts 6:30 a.m. on Friday. You can follow us on Twitter and Glimpse with the hashtag IrishEVChallenge. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Guillaume. Finally, the last one of our panelists today is Gary Comerford from the EV Musings podcast and Hampshire EVs.
Hi. As Neil just said, I'm Gary. If you listen to the EV Musings podcast, you might recognize my voice. And if you live in the Hampshire area, then I've probably spoken to you at one of our meets or on the Hampshire EVs Facebook page.
Right, thank you very much, Gary. And now, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to today's guest, who many of you will know. He's the great Chris Ramsey, famous for doing his Mongol rally in a Leaf 30. One of the classic adventurers of the EV movement. So I'd just like to give a warm welcome to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Just want to say thanks to all of you for inviting me on. I know most of you pretty well, and personally, it's great. It's great that what you guys are doing with the EV owners groups. Really important work that you guys do. But yeah, as you said, most people know me from the Mongol Rally, but I've been going for 10 years now, and I obviously do a lot of electric vehicle adventures, but I actually spend the vast majority of my time working with brands, engaging with their followers and also their customers, but also with some EV manufacturers actually putting some of their vehicles through their paces and testing some of their range capabilities and charging capabilities. So it's not just adventures.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much, Chris. Right. So the very first question is from me. Are you able to share any future plans for new adventures?
Yeah, I mean, I get this question asked quite a lot, obviously, because of it's been, what, 2 years? Well, for nearly 3 years now since the Mongol Rally, which is quite a bizarre thing to think about. 3 years has flown by. I mean, a couple of things. We actually were a way to announce a project and go live with a project before, as Charlie put it, the dreaded C word kind of came into play. So we're going to go live on a next project, and that is a major expedition. And it's far outreaching from whatever the Mongol Rally ever was. But I do have a project on the go just now, which I'm trying to engage with some brands on, and that is I'm going to be going on 2 wheels and taking an e-road bike and entering an ultra endurance cycle over in France. So I'm going to be putting an electric road bike and myself up against some of the top endurance cyclists in Europe, and see how I get on, and see how the e-road bike technology matches up to standard road bikes and obviously an endurance cyclist. So that is hopefully happening in October, pending engagement from support and sponsors.
That is very cool. Sorry, I had trouble with my mute button. Just out of curiosity, how long is this endurance ride?
So it's a 500-mile endurance cycle, and most endurance cyclists will complete it in about 38 to 40 hours. So we're talking like less than 2 days. But the event is actually open to everybody, general public in a sense, and so you can take up to 5 days to complete it. Obviously, my aim, I always push myself as I do. I'm aiming to kind of be up there with as many of the endurance cyclists as possible. So I'm aiming for 2 days completion. And so this is on an island, 15 to 1600 meter inclines through the mountains of the island, in all weathers. So yeah, there's about 300 entrants that will enter the event as well. And it's broadcast on French TV. Just getting that out there in case somebody's watching.
It's not going to be broadcast on British TV at all, is it?
It's not, no. But the hope is that what I'm looking to do is film it. I've got a camera guy and videographer standing by if the project goes ahead, and then that will be filmed and that will be pushed out through the Plug-in Adventures YouTube channel.
That is brilliant. That sounds so cool. Okay, over to John.
Hi, Chris. Well, this is one that we tend to ask all of our guest presenters. Money is no object. So what EV would you go for that's either available at the moment or is in the pipeline?
If money's no object, I've always been a hypercar fan, always. And Rimac, I've known Rimac since day one of their operation. So I mean, I'd probably go back to even say the Rimac Concept 1, their very first vehicle. It's a stunning piece of engineering. And if I was to go practical and to go back to my roots of adventure, at the moment, I mean, what Rivian are doing is just phenomenal. I mean, there's the pickup market is going to be taking off. The endurance, the Lordstown Endurance launched, but what Rivian have achieved with their vehicle and that skate platform is phenomenal. So 2 answers there, really. Money no object is got to be the Rimac all day long. And then you've got, if I go back to doing an adventure, the Rivian, for example, is the ultimate off-road vehicle. But as I proved, any vehicle can go off-road.
Yeah, most definitely.
About your Leaf 30, what kind of modifications did you do to it? Because it was fairly stock.
It is, yeah. It's pretty much, it's all we did was raise the suspension slightly. And then outside of that, we fitted some rally alloys to make it look a bit cool. We removed the back seats, and then we put no other word for it, a sump guard, a traditional sump guard underneath the front. And that was really just to protect the motor, the inverter, and the charger from rocks, especially as you can see in the background. Some of the road conditions we traveled on, this is Azerbaijan that we're in just now. And some of the road conditions, those elements need to be protected. So the idea of everything I do is to educate people about what you can do with an everyday vehicle. And effectively, you go buy that vehicle off the shelf, do some very minimal things to it, and that's what you can achieve. But it's that if that car can do that, just pretty much stock, you can drive to your local town and your local village. It's not a big deal. So it is pretty much stock, and that's currently sitting in the Grampian Transport Museum, still under our control in the Grampian Transport Museum. So still alive and well.
That's cool. I must admit, I was so excited when I first saw that car at Fully Charged Live.
Yeah.
So I did have to get a photo next to it.
Yeah, I mean, it was that was a bizarre day. It's kind of, for me and the wife, because obviously everything. I mean, I sit here and I talk about it, but obviously my wife was a massive part of the adventure, and did so much to make that possible behind the scenes. And when we were down at Fully Charged Live, we just thought, we'll park the car, we'll chat to a few people, and we'll go and enjoy Fully Charged. And we just inundated. We just couldn't believe the interest in the car. It was phenomenal, and it's humbling every time it happens. It really is. And so thank you for everybody and you guys that came and said hello during the show. It's really cool.
I think from my perspective, other than Robert and Johnny at that show, you were the next celebrity for me. You were the next person that I was desperate to meet face to face. We chatted before quite a bit, but I was desperate to come and meet you face to face, and had such a lovely chat with you and your wife, and learnt so much that you really were the number 3 celebrity for most people, I think, for that show.
That's lovely to hear. To be honest, it's the other way around. Is I was looking forward to meeting you. I was looking forward to meeting so many people there, because I know everybody through a lot of people through social media. And so to meet people face to face is such a lovely experience. And I mean, for me, I was parked beside Ed China's ice cream van, and I was sitting there. I was like, that's Ed China. Oh my god! So I got to meet Ed China as well, and I was pretty chuffed with that. So, and the fact that Ed China showed more interest in my car than in his ice cream van, which was quite cool.
That is excellent. Okay, over to Heather.
Okay, Chris, Paul Kirby has asked, when are you going to race Jean Hay on an e-bike versus the e-rally Zoe around Knock Hill?
If Paul's watching, probably on the same day that you join me and you race Jean as well, Paul. But no, I mean, I've said kind of with this, I'd love to do it. I'd love to do something with Jean. Jean is what Jean and Elia have done with the Renault Zoe. The Rally Zoe is just incredible. So I'd really love to do something with Jean and Elia at some point. Race their car around Knock Hill on an e-bike. If I get hold of my racing e-bike, my road bike, maybe. But maybe they'd have to do 2 laps. Charlie, you know Knock Hill very well. What do you reckon? 2 laps for them and 1 lap for me?
Or you're saying you can do a mile in 2 minutes, 30 miles an hour on your bike?
Love a challenge. Yeah, no, it would be quite cool. It would be quite cool to do something, whether it be on 2 wheels, but generally, I think I love Jean to get me out in the Rally Zoe and actually teach me a bit of rally driving. That'd be quite cool. Still got a penchant for going out and doing a bit of electric racing. That would be really cool.
Cool.
Excellent. Next one is from Colin.
Chris, how are you doing? Enjoying it so far?
Yeah, it's good. I love this kind of engagement. Like I said, it's great to be in a virtual room with all you guys. You guys, I just think the EV owners and Heather, I'm singling you out because the amount of stuff that we've done together and how passionate Heather is like, it's great what you guys do with the EV Owners Club. And I'm just going to say, Gillian as well, good luck, best of luck with your trip. I'll be following, trust me.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Chris. Okay, I've got a question from one of our members. If you could pick a celebrity from any walk of life that you had to circumnavigate the globe in an EV, who would you pick?
There's so many. I think if I'm gonna single somebody out, I think it's Johnny. Give him Johnny Smith, car pervert, as people know him on Twitter. There is so many. There's a whole list of adventurers that kind of inspire me. There's so many people, celebrities that I kind of look at and inspire by. There's a guy called Ross Edgley who circumnavigated the UK swimming, a phenomenal individual. But I think Johnny would just be such a laugh. And obviously the car element, we've got that in common. His barn finds and his restorations. There's just so much we could talk about. And I just think he'd be a great guy to hang around with. And the people that he knows, like Tom Wookie Ford from Top Gear, the opportunity to meet up with these guys who I've followed for such a long time would spring from that. So I think Johnny He's a good lad. He's a really good lad.
Great answer.
Okay, let's move over to Guillaume.
Yes, we have a Twitter question from Blake from EV Life Ireland.
Cool.
What was your biggest, funniest squeaky bum moment during the Mongol rally? You probably have many.
Yeah, and I think it's to give it a little bit of context. There was a number, that happened, but to give it a little bit of context in Kazakhstan, not a lot of people fully know, but when we arrived in Kazakhstan, we did set up an arrangement with the Kazakhstan government. We reached out to the government of Kazakhstan to say, we're traveling to your country. We obviously have got charging challenges, and we're going to the World Future Energy Summit, which was the world's largest kind of energy future of energy summit at that time in the capital city of Kazakhstan. So it actually turned out the CEO of the state petrol company got in contact and said, hey, I've heard about this. The government have said this. I think this is phenomenal. You are demonstrating the future of my business. What I'm going to do is install 2-pin plugs in every single petrol station along your route, which filled in a big bunch of holes for us, but we still had a lot of distances to travel where there wasn't anything, where we just had to pull up to towns and villages and little cafes in the middle of nowhere and ask just for some food and to plug in. So that all happened, but because of that buzz, we arrived in Kazakhstan off the ferry across the Caspian Sea. And when we arrived, there was the chief of police, the government minister, the local mayor, and we had a full police escort through the town and village. I mean, the sirens were going and they were driving down the street. They were forcing trucks off the other side of the road, and we were driving through red lights and everything, which we thought was really cool. But this happened throughout the whole west of Kazakhstan. So we're driving the whole west side of Kazakhstan with a full police escort whenever we'd finish charging, and it became so embarrassing after a while. And it actually, in some respects, actually slowed us down. But there was one point in the very start of the journey, because in Kazakhstan, they don't really get much about electric cars and the range and the fact of the charging and the speed that you've got to go. So they decided they were going to take us to this little spot where it was for a tourist spot. So there's local ghirs, which is the basically tents and huts, and the national kind of, if you think of yurtas in Mongolia, it's their equivalent in Kazakhstan. So we're taking us to this place that had solar panels to charge the little resort, which was really cool. So I knew my route, and my route was about 110 kilometers, which was great for the Leaf. And we've been driving for about 2.5 hours, and I'm thinking, where are we just now? So we're on the GPS map and found that we were actually going completely the opposite, the longest way around possible. So I didn't know where we were at this point. The police, we radioed our guide up ahead, the government guide. He says, yeah, we're about 15 kilometers away. 15 kilometers, you're fine. About an hour and 10 minutes later, we're still going, and we're still saying we're going to be 15 kilometers away. Dark was setting in. The range was just, the range had gone. The dash lines were there. We're thinking, we're not going to make this. And we got to a point where I was just getting so frustrated because I knew the car was going to run out of charge. And we mapped it, and we were still 60 kilometers away from where we had to get to. And this has got beyond the squeaky bum point. This was kind of like, this is just ridiculous. What are we going to do? And we were radioing them, and they said, yeah, don't worry, we're only 10 kilometers. Like, you said that about 50, 60 kilometers away. What's going on? And then eventually we were creeping up the top of this hill, and we were just about to get to the crest of this hill, and the village was we could see the entrance gate for the village, this big sign, and the car died just on the crest of the hill. And, turtle mode, it just kicked in, it just died, we were gone. So I jumped out of the car. I got my wife to jump in the driver's seat, and I said, look, I'll push us over the crest. You stop the car, and then I will get in the car, and we'll just coast it. We'll put it into neutral, and we'll coast all the way down into the village, and we'll be good. So I pushed the car over the crest, stopped pushing as the car started to move, thinking it was going to be great. I'll go jump in the car. My wife forgot that she was supposed to put the brake on and wait for me. She just continued down the bottom of the hill and coasted off into the village. So I was running in flip-flops and running down this massive hill. And it turned out we still had 30 kilometers to go. So we did end up getting a tow.
That's brilliant.
Sorry.
Are you sure Julie just wasn't trying to run away, Chris?
There is that. I mean, the fact that all the doors were locked, and when I went up to the car, it was like, maybe she was just trying to tell me something. We had driven probably about 20 days solid at this point. So maybe she was a little bit fed up with me. And my singing is terrible. Maybe my singing put her off in the car. I don't know.
Don't ever ask Leanne about my singing in the car. It's not a good thing.
That probably goes back to the other question. The other question. As long as Johnny's a good singer, then I would definitely go around the world with him.
Okay, the next one's from Gary.
Hi, Chris. I believe you're in the Guinness Book of Records for the longest distance ridden by an individual on an e-bike in 12 hours. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely is, yeah.
Talk to me about that world record attempt. Was there a conscious attempt to say, I want my name in the record books? Or was it that old chestnut of, well, there's a challenge there. I wonder if I can do it. And if I just happen to get my name in the record books, that's secondary.
Probably a little bit of both. It's a good question, because it is probably a little bit of both. Because I mean, I grew up with Roy Castle and the Guinness World Records and all that. I mean, I did that when I was young, thinking, wouldn't it be great to be in the Guinness World Record books? But I did this project with Volt Bikes and the Energy Saving Trust of Scotland. So we kind of looked at a way that we can basically amplify the message around electric bikes and how they are great for urban transport, and you can ditch your car and you can travel on an e-bike, whether you're a cyclist or you're not. And again, to put that into a little bit of context as well, I'm not a cyclist. I'm not a professional cyclist. I don't do long distances. I'm pretty much just a general casual cyclist like most other people. So I thought, how can we amplify that message? And we spoke to the Energy Saving Trust, and we talked about various different things, and it all obviously revolved around putting the bike through its ultimate paces and putting me through my ultimate test. And it's got to be physical. It's got to make people see just how much the bike can cope, as well as a non-cyclist can, and do something pretty, I would say pretty amazing, because people can go further, but it's pretty cool. And then obviously the Guinness World Record thing then just came from that. I started to think, well, everybody affiliates with the Guinness World Records, so let's have a look at Guinness World Records. And I saw that the world record was set, I think it was back in 2014, I think. And I thought, well, I give that a go. It was 110 miles at the time. So I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. We can do that. It's going to be a great media story. The media will pick it up. We can talk about how e-bikes can help people get out of their cars, and we can help traffic congestion. We can help improve air pollution with using bikes as a mode of transport in the cities. But we also get a Guinness World Record at the same time, because then that is what the hook is for any media, and that's really what drives it. Is the media won't really publish a story because somebody cycled very far. They'll publish it if it's a Guinness World Record, if it's something out of the ordinary. And that's where the Guinness World Record kind of came from. So I researched it, and it was basically 110 miles, and in that 12 hours I actually did 182.3 miles, but Guinness officiated at 177.8, if I remember rightly.
Now that's quite a huge difference between what the old record was and the new one.
Yeah.
Why was it so much? What did you do different to the previous record holder?
I don't know. I think it's maybe just the technology and the battery technology at the time, because the interesting Bolt gave me a couple of batteries, an 80-mile range battery, which, as we know, is exactly the same with an electric car. Doesn't mean to say it's going to go 80 miles. If you use it on fast pace, then it's a case of you're going to drain that battery more. But I think at that time, the battery range for the previous record holder wasn't as big as that. There were probably only about 20 or 30 miles. But when you use the assist as much as you do, I mean, obviously you're going to wipe that battery out a lot quicker. The interesting thing was when Volt gave me that battery, they didn't actually know how much that range could cope with, how much it could actually do. They knew roughly based on their science effectively behind it. But with an e-bike, for some of the listeners that don't know, is you're assisted depending on what speed you select. So I obviously chose high speed, the full setting, and within 2 or 3 revolutions of the pedal, I was sitting at about 15.5 miles an hour. So it's pretty cool. But after that, you take over. It's all leg power. So I was sitting about 20, 21, 22, maybe a little bit more consistently for a number of hundreds of laps, because it has to be done. The record has to be done on a closed circuit or a closed track. So I was just looping around an oval circuit for 12 hours and spending most of the time off the battery. And when I was going around the bends, I was getting a little bit of assistance because it was Scottish wind, snow, sleet, everything was hitting me. And I got 65.7 miles out of that battery. So that was pretty good. But the cool thing I said about it is you spend most of your time off the battery. So and that's what's going to be the cool thing with the ultra endurance cycle that I'm going to do, is the fact that spending a lot of times in the mountains is to then see how I perform with the battery as well.
Thank you.
Now, this is a question that you've probably been asked quite a few times before, but what is the most unusual place that you slept while on the Mongol rally?
And we've got to, as we said earlier, we've got to keep it clean. So yeah, there's obviously a number of places, and predominantly one of the most, not unusual, but one of the most common was the car. The car was our hotel for about 80%, 85% of the rally. Because most of the places we charged at, ironically, was petrol stations overnight. They were really accommodating. But I think probably one of the coolest places we slept at was in Russia. So there was a Mongol rally team who were from Russia, the first ever Russian team to enter the Mongol rally. They drove all the way from the center of Russia to Goodwood Racing Circuit for the start of the rally, drove all the way to Mongolia, and then drove all the way to the center of Russia again. So they were pretty incredible, but we met them on the way. They were coming back from Ulan-Ude, the finishing line of the rally, when we were making our way through Russia, because they just hammered the trip as quick as they could. And we said to them, look, great, had a little chat and said, where are you going? I said, well, we're going to a fire station, because ironically, the fire stations in Russia have actually been, we met a guy, a fireman, asked if he would give us a charge. And he's phoned ahead to all the fire stations along our route. And now we're getting charges at fire stations, which is pretty cool. And so I think we're going to the next one, and that's where we're going to sleep for the night. And they were like, what? Can we come with you? Because nobody gets to sleep. Nobody gets to go into fire stations in Russia. It's not allowed. So they came with us, and we basically slept in the bunkhouse of the fire station. And I fulfilled a lifelong dream. I slid down a fireman's pole, and that is keeping it clean, I'll be honest. And we got to play with the fire engine. I was testing out all the fire apparatus. It was great. We had a really good time. And then we had breakfast with them in the morning, and then we unplugged and we drove off. So that was really cool. That is probably one of the moments that will stick with me from the rally. And I'll just put that into context, is because if the Russian government had found out, or if something had leaked or something had happened, and there was never any pictures of these guys in our social media, because if it got out, then these guys could have lost their jobs, and that's right up to the chief of the fire station. It was just that how we had to keep it kind of low key in a way. It was really cool.
Incredible hospitality.
Yeah,
that is amazing. That. Okay.
And you'll find that that's the thing about the trip. And in any adventure, the point A to point B is great. It's wonderful. That's a great story. But it all becomes secondary, because it's all about the people you meet. And we couldn't have done the rally without the people that we met along the way. I couldn't have done the rally without my wife, because of some of the stuff that she did and some of the spots she got us out of. But mainly the people that we met along the way that went, yeah, we'll let you plug in. because we only got turned away twice out of the entire rally, and we charged 110 times across that whole trip.
That is, it's one of those things that I think we'd all want to do, but never have the courage to do. And you've gone and done it. So it's
Come
just...
on, who's doing it next? Nobody. We hope that somebody would go. This was to inspire other people to kind of go, yeah, let's go and do the Mongol Rally in an electric car, and let's not burn give out all these emissions as we do it, because 250 entrants pretty much every year do the Mongol Rally. We're the first electric car to do it, but we're still the first electric car. I'm still wanting somebody to go out there and do it, and hopefully the Mongol Rally to become an electric rally as opposed to a combustion engine rally. But I do get from the rally's ethos, there was something really cool about taking an old school car. There was 2 Morris Miners that did the rally the same year as us, taking little cool old school vintage cars like that and giving them maybe in some respects that final send off, which is quite cool.
That is cool. I'll tell you something I've spotted. There's a lot of people doing the North Coast 500. And I think I put a lot of that down to what you did, that people want a challenge. They don't feel comfortable doing the Mongol Rally themselves, but they feel comfortable enough to do the North Coast. And it's a big challenging route.
I did that back in 2016 in a 30 kilowatt Leaf. That was probably, if you guys are all aware of Mark Hankin from Fully Charged Live now with Johnny, he's the camera genius behind that. I gave him his first squeaky bum moment in an electric car on that trip, going through that route when there wasn't enough chargers at that time, enough rapid chargers at the time, and we were just coasting and going down with very little charge in the car and still trying to make it to our stop. He was like, can we just stop now? Can we just find somewhere to stop? So he's a lovely guy, but yeah, we always joke about that at times. But I was going to say in that as well, I think it's all down to the fact as well, eVolt and the Charge Point Scotland, the fact that their network has expanded so much up in that area now, and 22 kilowatt chargers, and there's a number of B&Bs, hotels that are installing chargers as well. So that network expansion has made it a lot more comfortable for people now as well, I guess.
That's cool. Now we're over to John.
Would you consider doing the Mongol Rally again with a modern EV? And if so, which EV would you choose to do it in?
I've answered this question for somebody else before, because they were asking. I was just thinking. I think, to be honest with you, the answer is no. I wouldn't do it in a modern day EV, because the whole element of it, it's an adventure. It's supposed to be an adventure. You're supposed to run out of charge. In their ethos, you're supposed to break down. The car's supposed to be unsuitable. If you've got a vehicle that can do 250, 300 miles, then it kind of does away with it, really. It kind of does away with that challenge, and the times you'll be running low on charge and have to stop in the most obscure places. That's what makes it. I think if you've got a modern day EV, you can drive you 250 miles, and then you can find somewhere to charge, and that's you can stop for the day. But if I was to choose something, I'd probably go back. I'd go back and be really obscure, and probably say, let's do it in a Renault Twizy.
Nice.
I've had this joke a number of times. With James and Kate and Craig Tung and EV Nick and people like that. So saying that, yeah, let's go and do it in a Twizy. There's a guy who's modified a Twizy and given it a new battery pack. And 7 kilowatt charging, and thinking, hey, let's go and do it in a Twizy. Let's make it a bit of a challenge. I don't think my back will cope with with some of the road though, because the suspension is a bit unforgiving in a way in that Twizy.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that my star EV, that if I could afford it, would be a Series 2A Land Rover, 88-inch
cool.
with, fully kitted out. If I could afford that, I would probably consider doing the Mongol Rally in the Series 2A that is fully electric. I changed the seats and put some bounce seats in it for my dodgy old back, but I think I'd consider doing it in that.
The interesting thing is they wouldn't actually let you enter.
Really?
Because the ethos behind the Mongol Rally is the car can cost no more than £1,000. They made the exception for me because of the car's got to be unsuitable, and it's got to be no more than a 1 litre engine. So because obviously the Leaf qualifies within that bracket, and the fact that everybody classed the car as completely unsuitable for the journey, they thought, well, hey, we'll waive the cost bracket for you because obviously, you know, that's going to be cool. And interesting enough, the Mongol Rally team, their whole operation, they all took a vote and took a bet in their offices about who thought we would complete the rally and turn up at the finishing line, and not a single person bet on us. They all bet against us. And when we walked in their office, they were like, in Russia, they were like, "It's you guys? What? We never thought you'd make it here." So
very good. I didn't realise that. Although, you know, it had to be, that was for the stipulations. Every day's a school day.
Yeah. The idea is you break down. The idea is they want you to break down. They don't want you to get very far in a sense, because they want you to kind of have an adventure and not just kind of go for joy, or else you can just smash that route out in no time. And there is no finishing. There's no definitive finishing. If you want to finish it within a certain time, you can get that big picture on the rally podium, which is obviously what we wanted. And you get a big finishing party, which was again what we wanted for doing it, getting our first drink in a long time. But there are people that take over a year, and they take ridiculous routes. They go all over the place, and then they turn up in Ulan Ude like a year later, and they're still classed as finishing the rally.
That's really good. It is definitely an adventure then. Yeah, maybe I should consider maybe one of the London electric cars, Morris Minors, because they're less than a litre engine originally. Yeah,
they've got some cool vehicles coming out of that garage.
Yeah,
really like it, and their show the other night was really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, we were
to those guys.
We were really lucky. Steve and I went up just after Christmas, so just before the dreaded sea broke out. And we went out in the Series 2 that they just finished, and also in a classic Mini. So that was great, going around central London in an electric Land Rover and an electric Mini, and the electric Land Rover burning all sorts of cars off at the lights in central London was quite impressive.
Yeah, cool. They've got some cool stuff. They're really cool.
Okay, now we go over to Heather.
Chris, who from the world of adventuring inspires you?
I always give two answers. I always do. I don't know why I do this, but I think the first person that inspires me is I'll explain about him as well in case some people don't know. But there's an adventurer called Mark Beaumont. So Mark Beaumont is the current Guinness World Record holder for cycling around the world in under 80 days. On a standard road bike. So this guy was cycling on average 240 miles a day every day for 76.5 days. The guy is just an ultimate machine. But his journey that he's done throughout his life, he started basically going off and doing little adventures when he was, I think he was something like 11 years old as a boy. And he is such a humble and wonderful individual, because I speak to him quite a lot at the moment. He's given me so much guidance over the years. He's such a great guy. He's very cool. So yeah, I mean, there's Mark Beaumont is probably is the guy. And when I say I always give two answers, it's because there is, to a certain extent, there is another one, because it not necessarily the people, but what they did. As an adventure documentary, as an adventure series, the Long Way Round and the Long Way Down series was a massive inspiration for me. Charlie and Ewan, I watched their documentaries, and I actually sat there and went, like, they get to do that because they're Charlie and Ewan. Yeah, I mean, they can get people, they can get money, no problem. And then in the end, I just thought, hang on a minute, no. I've done little cool stuff, done little adventures and everything. If I want to do that, and that's what I would love to do, then you've got to get out there and start speaking to people, because ultimately they weren't Charlie and Ewan one day. So that's what I did, and watching their series inspired me. And then I then went and watched The Long Way Round again prior to the Mongol rally, just to kind of give me a bit of excitement and buzz.
Cool.
Okay, next one's from Colin.
Hi, Chris. I'm going to give you a little bit of fun with this one, and I know John earlier was dying to answer this question, and I think he's given his answer. But question being, and I'm going to ask you to consider this scene. So you wake up one morning, there's a knock on the door. Maybe one of your brand partners has sent you a crate EV motor, and another brand partner has sent you a 100 kilowatt battery pack. My question is, what would you put them in, classic, contemporary, or otherwise?
100. I don't think the cars could fit a 100 kilowatt battery pack. Kilowatt hour battery pack. Sorry. I go back to my childhood, my younger days, and I love the Ford Escort XR3i. And the Renault 5 GT Turbo. These are two cars for me, which are just they were from my childhood. I loved them. The XR3i with fully black with the red trim. It's such a cool car. So I'd probably retrofit one of those. I'd probably go with one of those and relive my childhood, because I wanted one of those as a boy forever. If we're going to go with an old classic, a Speed 7. The Speed 7s are pretty cool as well. I'd love to kind of electrify one of those as well. But XR3i, I think.
No, great answer.
That made me sound like a boy racer.
Well, no, I'd be in and around that period of cars myself as well, but I'm going to go a bit further back, and I'm going to go for a Porsche 356 Speedster. That's my dream car. They don't sound that great anyway, but you know, that would be my choice. And I think it's actually been done, and people are doing them at the moment. Yeah,
they are absolutely. That would be beautiful. That would be something really nice to see. See, it makes me sound really, really, really lame now. No, good choice. Good choice.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with an XR3i with pepper pot wheels.
Yeah. Look, everybody else is quiet. What would you guys choose? Go on, let's give us some choices. I'm sure, Charlie, you've got some ideas there. Come on.
Yeah, there's a fair few. Yeah. Neil and I bonded last couple of weeks over some seriously lovely pictures of a Porsche Speedster. I think like something proper racy would be really cool. I know we've spoken about the Caterham. I think that would be ultimately that sort of a 30 kilowatt battery in that with 210 horsepower on the rear wheels. That would just be
cool.
Bonkers. But then also the new electric rallycross cars coming next year, 700 horsepower, all-wheel drive. Yeah, that's a little bit of me. Something like a Group B rally car, like a 205.
That'd be pretty cool.
Group B 700 horse. Yeah.
A car which would work quite well. A car that would work quite well is the Marcos Mantura, because it's got an enormous bonnet. It could be a great big frunk. You could store bodies in it.
Yeah, as you do, bodies. DB5.
DB5, that would be nice. That would be nice. Actually, going back to the Porsche Speedster, if you want to save a bit of money, the Chesil kit car Speedster would save a lot of money, and they're much more common.
Yeah, very well aware of those, Neil, and I'm constantly looking at their price list.
I said cheaper. Beardy, are you saying something?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
We can now.
Yeah. Sorry, I pressed the mute button. We actually own Kay owns a Mini Cooper, late 1960s, which needs a refurb at the moment, and we are umming and ahhing whether to put it back as standard or to make it electric. And I think it's pushing towards becoming electric.
Yeah.
although although Land Rover is my dream car because it's the first car I ever drove when I was 13 off-road, my first two cars were Minis. So having tried the electric Mini out now up at London Electric Cars, I think actually rather than putting the Cooper back as standard, put it back with an electric motor.
I think we're talking about a lot of people talking about scrapping cars and having to buy new and everything. Go and take some of your classic cars. Take the car that you still love, you've got a passion for, you've driven for like the last 10 years or whatever it be, and you love that car. Just go and get it converted. If you think about the cost of conversion compared to buying a new car, it's they're going to be on level parish. But then the thing is, your ongoing maintenance costs are going to be a lot cheaper, as we all know. I'm preaching to the converted here, but it's kind of the ongoing maintenance cost of that vehicle is going to be so much better. But you get to keep hold of your classic car, your baby, which is the most important thing.
There's a very beautiful car which could be converted, I think, probably fairly easily. I say easily in air quotes, and that's the VW Karmann Ghia.
Hasn't Richard just done one of those? Did I see some pictures on Twitter that Richard has just done one?
This is where I have to admit that I've been really bad and I haven't watched Richard's program from the other night.
No, it's just that he put some pictures
pulling faces at me.
The Karmann Ghia getting done up in Scotland just now. There's a Karmann Ghia getting done by a company up in Scotland just now, I think, as well. So
that would be a fabulous car to do. Obviously, Triumph Spitfire, I think that would make a good contender. Well, I say it'd make a contender.
As long as you can find one with a decent body that's sort of left, otherwise you're struggling, really, aren't you?
Yeah, perhaps not go with anything British Leyland.
Anything 1970s BL, don't touch it.
Anyway, before we get too carried away, let's move on to Guillaume.
Yes. Actually, I just want to bounce for a minute on the previous question because, Chris, you mentioned the Renault 5. I actually own one of these and always say to myself, when the engine will be gone, I will put an electric power plant. But the cool thing about those cars are like 700 kilos. So if you put a battery pack in it, even not even a big one, you still have a car that's way below a ton, and you can probably have a great range on this, and you don't need to put a huge battery pack. So I think there's great potential as well for this.
Yeah,
anyway,
definitely for me, definitely Renault 5 and XR3i, they're pretty cool. That's cool.
Yes. Question now. So more about your career and your love for adventures. Did you always know you were going to do what you do, or was there ever another path you could have taken?
Yeah, I mean, kind of answered a little bit back earlier on with regards to the long way round kind of question, but no, in a nutshell, no, I didn't know this is what I was going to do. I never even had essentially at that point, any dreams of doing this. I'd always been a massive adventure documentary fan, nature fan, documentary fan. So it's something that kind of was there, but never an aspiration to become an adventurer. Well, I still think it's bizarre. I mean, calling yourself an adventurer is a bit of a weird thing to do. But I mean, I've talked about this quite a lot, and I'm quite open with it. Is my background was actually oil and gas. So I grew up in Aberdeen, which is oil and gas capital of Europe. Pretty much the economy there is like you basically go to school, go to uni, and you basically come out and you go and work for an oil company, and that's what you do. So that was my trajectory. I run manufacturing facilities for oil and gas companies. And I was basically going to become a production manager, an operations manager, and progress up the career. And then I was doing a bit of research because the company I worked for had a renewable energies arm. So I did a little bit of research on their website, and suddenly an advert for a Nissan Leaf popped up. And I was like, an electric car, really? So I kind of looked at it and kind of looked at that, and I was kind of intrigued. And as you guys have seen through the way I do what I do, I wanted to know more about the technology. So I thought, well, the only way to do it is I take it and I go and put it through its paces, and I go and test the charging infrastructure, because I want to know is there enough charging infrastructure? How far can you go on a charge? How long does it take to charge? I want to answer all these questions. So I thought, right, I'm going to get a Nissan Leaf for the weekend. A dealership foolishly gave me one. And I decided to drive all 3 UK capital cities and back in a long weekend with a friend. And at that point, we were told by the dealership, you'll never make it to Dundee, which is basically 65 miles from Aberdeen. And I did that trip. It was a nightmare. Very little charging infrastructure, probably about 60 chargers in the entire country. And I finished the trip and went, wow, I love this. It's been a nightmare, but I love this. This technology is fantastic. Everyday driving, I can drive an electric car. It's be great. Why use the car that I've got? And so I bought a Leaf. I sold my car. I bought a Leaf, and it basically went from there. On that trip, I met Jonathan Porterfield from Eco Cars. He became such a cool friend. He's such an amazing person. And we went and did a number of things together. The Johnny Goes to Land's End, and everything I did, I shared on social media, and people just seemed to just enjoy it because they were seeing electric vehicles being put through real world situations and testing the charging infrastructure and the challenges you have when you turn up to a charger and maybe not naming the company, but the charger doesn't work when you turn up to the services. So all those kind of things. And so people enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed testing the technology more and more and more. So it kind of just developed from there. And then I took the decision that I didn't want to be a part of the oil and gas industry anymore and be a part of the problem that I'm actually sitting here telling people we need to get rid of. It was honestly, it was very hypocritical of me. So I walked away from that industry. I took an opportunity during a downturn many years ago to take voluntary redundancy, and the Mongol Rally was born. It was that was 3 years I've been thinking about the rally, and I thought, that's it. I'm doing it. I'm doing the Mongol Rally, and this is it. This is what my life is going to be, and trying to educate in that small way that I can the British public.
It really is amazing being able to take your life and do something amazing that is really in your heart to do.
Yeah.
So
that is a question. The question I get asked quite a bit as well, to add on to that, is kind of like, people say, well, isn't it great being an adventurer and doing all these cool adventures? And you kind of go, yeah, it is cool, but it's about 10% of my life. I mean, the next project that we're working on, that's been, ever since I finished the rally, that project has been in the pipeline, and we've been working on that project. So we're 3 years down the line, and I'm still working. That project is still being fine-tuned and starting to come to life. Most of my time is spent working with brands, going into, well, as Heather knows, working with Energy Saving Trust and going to all their events and giving talks, engaging with the public. That's predominantly where most of my work is. So for an adventurer, and when you speak to any adventurers, and again, like I say, I kind of feel stupid using that word, because basically an adventurer is kind of like, people don't, well, my wife doesn't even think it's a real job. So it's kind of, they will tell you the same thing. That's not our life. That's not what we do. That's the fun bit, but that's the very, very, very small fraction of what we actually do day to day.
Still, I'm sure that having adventurer on your CV is almost the same as having superhero.
No, not really. I mean, I've given a number of talks, and the one that it was the engineering show down in Coventry, and the guy introduced me as like, it's cool that I can introduce an adventurer. And I got up and I said, look, it's weird that I get introduced as an adventurer. And one day I just decided to call myself an electric vehicle adventurer, and it stuck. And everybody calls me that now, and it's what's on my profiles and everything, because I guess that's probably the best way to sum me up in the first part. But I kind of just say to people, so if you want to become an adventurer, just start calling yourself an adventurer as a job. Just say, when people say, what do you do for a living? I'm an adventurer. And then everybody will just start calling you an adventurer. It's cool.
Almost reminds me of a job that I had where I was the head of global IT operations, and global IT operations was me.
I can relate to the thing where your wife doesn't believe that your career is actually a real job. Obviously, I spent many years working at sea, and my CV says boat skipper, and that's not a job. You're just playing at that, and all your friends think the same because the only time they ever spend on a boat is when they're playing. So I can definitely relate to adventure and not being a real job.
Yeah, it is like I say, it is a strange thing to get your head around, because like I say, at the moment, for example, my job is literally is at the moment doing nothing because of obviously the current climate. So it's not an easy life to live. It's got a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, when we are able to do something really cool, it helps. And ultimately, it's not about the money for me. It's about the education that we can do, and the strong messages we can send to people. So
yeah, completely agree with that. Okay, next one is from Gary.
If we pick up on the whole adventure thing, one of the last things that you did was, or one of the recent things you did was race James Coates. I think he was in the Twizy, you were on the e-bike, and you were going down to, was it Fully Charged Live? Yeah,
we were. Yeah.
Have you challenged him to any more crazy stunts? Leanne from YouTube would like to know the answer to that question, please.
No, we haven't challenged each other to any more crazy stunts as yet. When that did pop up in Jonathan's timeline not long back, and it did then cause me and James to have a conversation about maybe doing something again, because that was really cool. That was really cool to do, but obviously it was the main thing behind that was obviously you guys know Jan Bart Spang from social media. It was obviously the devastating situation he had with his daughter. So that was really the driver behind that. The fact that she was obviously in a very critical condition in hospital and unfortunately sadly passed away. So we were doing that to raise money for them and for that cause. So that was the bigger thing behind it. But it was obviously cool to raise James, and we're always egging each other on. We're always kind of seeing if there's other things that we can do, and I'm sure it won't be the last thing we do together. James is just as nuts in a way as what I am, so he's really cool. So yeah, I think we will do something else.
Well, of course, he's just gone and built his own e-bike, hasn't he? So there should be some potential there for a race of some sort.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, and we're obviously good friends with John Shivers, who rode his zero bike from John the Goats to Land's End. So I had a zero last year, and I'm getting another zero this year to have a little play with. So there is maybe something we can do with an electric motorbike. That'd be quite cool.
That is excellent. Okay, so if there was one event, just one specific moment from the Mongol rally that will always stick in your mind and something that you will always remember, what would it be?
Easy, all day long answer to that is again in Kazakhstan when we were on the west side. The west side, to give an indication of driving conditions in the west side, the picture behind me is Azerbaijan, and that is good roads. Kazakhstan was nowhere as good as that. On the west side, it was crazy. But we were driving between these two towns, and it was about 50 kilometers. And we were about 10 kilometers out of this town, and there was a young boy walking along the road with a herd of goats, and his head was down, and he's just trudging along. And as he looked up, he saw us. We gave him a beep on the horn, and me and Julie gave him a wave, and his face just lit up. And he started waving back at us, and he was smiling. And because we had the police escort at the time, we stopped. The police stopped and said, "We move on. We move on." And I was like, "No, we want to talk to this boy. We want to find out more about this boy." And got him in the car, let him sit and play in the car. And it turned out he was basically walking. And then once he got to the village, he was selling a couple of goats, and he's walking back to his village again. So this kid, he was 12, if I remember rightly. And he was probably going to be getting home about 11 o'clock at night. And that was his life every day. So what we did was we basically chucked him in the car. We drove, we got the goats, sold the goats in the little village, got him in the car. We drove back to his village. The last basically a kilometer We got him in the driver's seat, let him have a drive. And his parents got out food. We had a great time, and we just learned so much about that family. And I just thought, for me, that's going to live with me, because that kid is now going to grow up always remembering that moment, and hopefully that moment gives him the opportunity to try and maybe do some more. Because if you think of people in the world, that kid is that life, that's all that kid's going to know is basically delivering goats to the local village. And I find that quite, reality is that's what it is for a lot of people, but I find that quite upsetting as well. So if I was able to just give him a little smile, it was kind of a cool thing, and I will never forget his face and the look on his family's face when we pulled up he pulled up driving our car.
Wow, that really is a moment. That's a tiny moment of pure humanity. That is beautiful. There's nothing else I can say about that. That is incredible. But I will pass over to John now.
Right, this is a question from James Ellis Brown on the YouTube. Has Rivian approached you about doing an adventure in one of their vehicles? Because it seems like that would be a perfect fit for you and for them. And if not, would you approach them?
They haven't approached me. I wouldn't say I was not open to them approaching. The thing with this type of adventure, and it's for manufacturers, it's still very difficult for them to do, or for them to kind of understand how possible or how it is realistically possible, and it's very risky for them to do these kind of adventures. It was very late in the day where Nissan actually said to us, "Can we get involved in your adventure? Just share your story." They were very uneasy about getting involved, because at the end of the day, what happens if you break down? What happens if you have problems with a car, the motor goes, then your adventure's over, and what kind of message is that going to be for their vehicle? So it's always very difficult for me to deal with manufacturers. They're obviously very engaging, but the adventures that I do are just so bold that they immediately get scared. I mean, the conversations have never been really had with Rivian. I'm open. I've open to conversations with any manufacturer, because it's about seeing if we can push their technology so they can learn more from their vehicle, and then implement that, just like Jaguar have done Formula E with the I-Pace E-Trophy series. They push their vehicles to the forefront, and they've been able to then take that back and increase more range, unlock more range in their vehicles. So that's what the adventures are more about, rather than trying to, test a vehicle to destruction. So I'm never closed off to any manufacturer having a conversation, any conversations with any manufacturers.
Adding on to that, is there a particular manufacturer that you would love to do an adventure with? If all the clouds lined up and everything like that, who would you really like vehicle would you like to put through its paces?
Again, there's so many. I mean, it's a good question, and it's kind of hard to answer in a way, because you touched on Rivian. I mean, obviously their vehicle and the accessories that they've developed for their vehicle just play well into what I do. But then you've also got Jaguar Land Rover, going back to your love of the old Defender. You've got Jaguar as well, Jaguar Land Rover and Jaguar, such a heritage in adventure. And they've got a cool range. The I-Pace, I think, could be tested to some ultimate extremes. But then it's ironic to say, for some, is the vehicle itself just actually becomes irrelevant to the whole adventure that we do, or the adventure that I do, because I could joke about the Twizy. I would happily do it within an adventure in a Twizy, because it's more about the story and more about what we talk about along the way. The next project that we're working on just now is more about the educational side, the adoption about climate mitigation, the solutions that are in place, and also just how you can adventure into the extremes and into the wilderness and still be able to power your way around the world. And that's away from any grid source. So the vehicle effectively becomes secondary because it is effectively just a mobile battery.
Thank you very much. That's great. Good answer, that. I like that.
Okay, let's go over to Heather.
Okay, this is a question from YouTube. From the different countries you drove through, which ones have the best charging infrastructure?
Definitely not Belgium. The best charging infrastructure. I would probably say from that, Romania was really good. So Romania had a whole series of rapid chargers. They're installed at their supermarkets, and we can get some really cheap food. It was really good, but their chargers, you just turned up, plugged in. It was all at that time effectively free vend, and they were super reliable. We never had a single charger go down on us at all. Yeah. Never had any issues. And ironically, I say Belgium because on the flip side to that is Belgium. I've had a number of issues in Belgium, and that was the time when the Leaf actually ended up on the back of a flatbed truck being driven across Belgium. Well, because we drove all the way back from the Mongol rally pretty much, and we got into Belgium, and none of the chargers would work. The cars that we had didn't work. The helplines were just useless. They just didn't. One of the helplines didn't even know what a CHAdeMO connector was and what DC charging was. It was unreal. So we end up having to get the car on a flatbed through the Nissan recovery service and delivered to taken to a Nissan dealer. And we put it on a rapid charger there. And that was the very last charge in Europe before we basically jumped on the ferry across back into the UK.
Yeah. What are the make of the ones in Romania then? What make are the chargers?
If I'm rightly, they're the same as, just trying to think, they're EFAC. If I'm right, I think they're actually EFAC. Just trying to think of the card setup on the side, because there was an RFID card setup on the side. I think with it being on the side, I think it was EFACs. Which I think is that Siemens? But anyway, yeah, it's EFACs.
Cool.
Right, thank you very much for that. I'm very acutely conscious that we've gone over an hour now. So I think this one's going to have to be the final question. It comes from Rob Shaw, and it should be a fairly quick one. How many miles has your Leaf done now, and what's the battery like?
Battery life, I think it was checked. Jonathan Porterfield plugged in his Leaf Spy. I think I'm sitting still at about 93% state of charge, state of health. And that Leaf has covered 39,000 miles. And most of that is basically, well, the vast majority of that is purely from the rally, driving back, and then taking the Leaf backwards and forwards to events, because I got it with about 500 miles on the clock. Oh, you're on mute, Neil.
I was bound to do that at least once during this. Okay, well, thank you so much, Chris. It has been absolutely lovely having you on the show today. So thank you very much for answering all our questions. And thank you to everybody on the stream who submitted questions, everybody who submitted questions prior to the start of this. We've got some great guests coming up in the future. I've confirmed Jordan Brompton from MyEnergy and Jewel Noel from EV Clicks. Dates to be confirmed. So please take a look at the EV Groups Nexus Twitter channel and the EV Groups Nexus Facebook page for details of when that's going to happen. These events will also be posted in all of the clubs. So thank you to everybody on the panel. Thank you. It's been a great session. Right.
Thank you for inviting me.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.